Chapter 57. Of whales in paint, in teeth, in wood, in sheet iron, in stone, in mountains, in stars. On Tower Hill, as you go down to the London docks, you may have seen a crippled beggar, or kedger, as the sailors say, holding a painted board before him, representing the tragic scene in which he lost his leg. There are 3 whales and 3 boats, and one of the boats, presumed to contain the missing leg in all its original integrity, is being crunched by the jaws of the foremost whale. Any time these 10 years, they tell me, has that man held up a picture and exhibited that stump to an incredulous world. But at the time of his justification has now come. His 3 whales are as good whales as were ever published in Wapping, at any rate, and his stump is unquestionable as stump as you will find in the western clearings. But though, for in ever mounted on that stump, never a stump speech does the poor whaleman make, but with downcast eyes stands ruefully contemplating his own amputation. Throughout the Pacific, and also in Nantucket and New Bedford and Sag Harbor, you will come across lively sketches of whales and whaling scenes, graven by fishermen themselves on sperm whale teeth, or ladies' busks wrought out of the right whalebone, and other scrimshander articles, as the whalemen call the numerous little ingenious contrivances they elaborately carve out of the rough material, in their hours of ocean leisure. Some of them have little boxes of dentistical-looking implements, specially intended for the scrimshandering business. But in general, they toil with their jackknives alone, and with that almost omnipotent tool of the sailor, they will turn you out anything you please in the way of a mariner's fancy. Long exile from Christendom and civilization inevitably restores a man to that condition in which God placed him, i.e., what is called savagery. Your true whale hunter is as much a savage as an Iroquois. I myself am a savage, owning no allegiance but to the king of the cannibals, and ready at any moment to rebel against him. Now, one of the peculiar characteristics of the savage in his domestic hours is his wonderful patience of industry. An ancient Hawaiian war club or spear paddle, in its full multiplicity and elaboration of carving, is a great trophy of human perseverance as the Latin lexicon. For with but a bit of broken seashell or a shark's tooth, that miraculous intricacy of wooden network has been achieved, and has cost steady years of steady application. As with the Hawaiian savage, so with the white sailor savage. With the same marvelous patience, with the same single shark's tooth of his one poor jackknife, he will carve you a bit of bone sculpture, not quite as workmanlike, but as close packed in its amazingness of design as the Greek savage Achilles' shield, and full barbaric spirit and suggestiveness as the prince of that fine old Dutch savage Albrecht Dürer. Wooden whales, or whales cut in the profile of smart, dark slabs of noble South Sea warwood, are frequently met in the forecastles of American whalers. Some of them are done with much accuracy. At some old gabled roof country houses you will see brass whales hung by the tail for the knockers to the roadside door. When the porter is sleeping, an anvil-headed whale would be best. But these knocking whales are seldom remarkable as faithful essays. On the spires of some old-fashioned churches you will see sheet-iron whales placed there for weathercocks. But they are so elevated, and besides they are to all intents and purposes so labeled with hands off you cannot examine them closely enough to decide upon their merit. In the bony, ribby ridges of the earth, where at the base of high broken cliffs masses of rocks lie strewn in fantastic groupings upon the plain, you will often discover images of the petrified forms of the Leviathan partially merged in grass, which of a windy day breaks against them in a surf of green surges. Then again, in mountainous countries where the traveler is continually girdled by amphitheatrical heights, here and there, from some lucky point of view, you will catch passing glimpses of the profiles of whales, defined along the undulating ridges. But you must be a thorough whaleman to see these sights. And not only that, but if you wish to return to such a site again, you must be sure and take the exact intersecting latitude and longitude of your first standpoint, or else so chance-like are such observations of the hills that your precise and previous standpoint would require a laborious rediscovery. Like the Saloma Islands, which still remain incognita, though once high-ruffed Mendana trod them and old Figuera chronicled them. Now, when expandingly lifted by your subject, can you fail to trace out great whales in the starry heavens, and boats in pursuit of them, as when long filled with thoughts of war the eastern nations saw armies locked in battles among the clouds. Thus at the north I have chased Leviathan round and round the pole with revolutions of bright points that first defined him to me. And beneath the effulgent Antarctic skies I have boarded the Argo Navis, and joined the chase against the starry Cetus, far beyond the utmost stretch of Hydrus and the flying fish. With a frigate's anchors for my brittle bits, and fasces of harpoons for spurs, I would mount that whale and leap the topmost skies to see whether the fabled heavens, for all their countless tents, really lie encamped beyond my mortal sight. This is the end of chapter 57. So it goes on to more artwork of different types describing whales, and says that, you see various forms of it. Talks about a beggar holding up a sign with 3 whales and 3 boats and showing him losing his leg and showing his stump. Ahab had a similar stump and was in a similar condition, but instead of sitting and begging, Ahab has gone to war with the whale. He also mentions weather vanes and door knockers, which, they're weather vanes and door knockers in the shape of just about everything. And so whales in whaling regions are more than an apt item to put on a door knocker or weather vane. And he mentioned Cetus, which is one of the constellations, and Cetus is also known as the whale. And an interesting, the only really reason I know about Cetus is from Star Trek. And you're like, Star Trek, Moby Dick, Star Trek. Well, the Wrath of Khan, they picked up Khan on Ceti Alpha 5. Ceti Alpha is, actually it's better known as Alpha Ceti, but Cetus, the whale, also known as Ceti, is CETI, is the constellation, constellation in the southern hemisphere. And the brightest star is typically named Alpha. Now, because of different variations in star's magnitude and naming, the beta is actually the brighter star than the alpha. Usually you name them in order of the brightness. So you name the stars in the order of the brightness. So Alpha Ceti is the brightest star-ish. It's the second, as I said, it's the second. It should be the brightest, but it's the second brightest star in the Cetus constellation. And that is where Khan was abandoned in the TV series Star Trek in the episode Botany Bay. And he's picked up in The Wrath of Khan. So that's how I know Alpha Ceti, or Ceti Alpha, because of Star Trek and The Wrath of Khan. And it's really cool because in The Wrath of Khan, Khan quotes from Moby Dick, which really makes it appropriate that he was stranded in the Ceti galaxy, or in a star in the Ceti galaxy. So that's just an interesting little bit of trivia.